board meeting to order. Roll call shows that Don and Kelly are absent and excused. Everybody else is here. April 5th, 2018 regular board meeting minutes. Any comments, corrections?
There's a minor correction in public comment under Brian Ratzak. He caught up with me today. He was quoting something that J. Everett Mitchell had said, but then in Brian's opinion, he didn't feel it was the best interest in the public for now. So if we somehow can word that so that it doesn't look like he's quoting that J. Everett Mitchell said it wasn't in the best interest. Is that right, Brian? I don't understand.
Yeah, it's the way the notes read. It says that J. Everett Mitchell said it was in the best interest.
Yeah, we just need to keep it in the best interest. So I think that's what I remember reading. So we just want to make sure that that's quoted correctly.
Any other comments or questions or corrections? Now we need a motion with the correction that was presented.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? April 12th, 2018 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. April 12th, 2018 Closed Session Committee of the Whole meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. April 16th, 2018 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Approved. April 16th, 2018 Closed Session Committee of the Whole meeting minutes.
Also move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Approved. Agenda changes. We'll be moving item A from new business to this position. Item A is the CSM request, Need Real Estate LLC on Grandview Road. This was brought before the planning and zoning, and they had made a motion to recommend the passage of this. Is it okay that?
This one was on the last board agenda, but then it was withdrawn because there are some issues to still resolve with the homeowners association. They have since been resolved, so the homeowners association no longer, they approve it or recommend approval. The planning and zoning commission recommend approval, so we do not have any further objections. Is there any other comment you'd like to make?
No further comment. We talked about it, the planning and zoning. I think everybody knew our position on it, and the homeowners were here to confirm that.
Yes, we did have 3 representatives of the homeowners association at the planning and zoning commission meeting where they said that they do not object.
So you're looking for a motion to approve?
Correct.
Correct.
That's the final process.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve the CSM request with Needs Real Estate. Do I need to read the whole?
No, that's sufficient.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. We have a motion to go into closed session.
Just to clarify is that item E, we were withdrawing because I did not get the information that, I had it on there in case I got it, wanted to have it on there in case I needed it, but we don't. So that one is withdrawn, so we're only going into closed session for C.
So it's state statute 19.851C.
Correct.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session, noting state statute 19.851C concerning employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
We will take 5 minutes to clear the room so we can have our closed session. We are ready to return to open session. Next on the agenda is license and permits.
There are 2 operator licenses, number 113 for Tammy Wiegand and number 114 for Thomas Timmons. Both of these have received the police department's signature in approval, and I would be looking for a board motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Next is pre-registered citizens to be heard.
First on the list is Michael Paltzer from 481 North Crest Street.
Good evening, thanks for listening to my comments. I'm here in regards to the Michael Richter Street. I live over on Crest Street. I don't have a dog in this fight, but I've been kind of keeping up with it. And it would seem to me that if there's going to be a special assessment to landowners in an area, there should be a benefit for that money paid. And I've looked at the maps, I've looked at the plot map, and quite frankly, I don't see any benefit to the people who are paying this special assessment or are expected to pay the special assessment. I see benefit to the people who have lots to sell there or who have land in the direct vicinity of the street. But quite frankly, if you're going to be asked to pay money, you should get something out of it, a sidewalk, a sewer and water system, something. I'd like to hear what the benefit that these folks are going to be asked to pay for. All I see is 5 more houses or 8 more houses and more traffic. And that's not a benefit. Thanks.
Next is Jim Mueller from 806 Hickory Street.
Hi. I have a few comments here. First, I'd like to start with the questions that were asked. So in looking at the alternatives to the Michael Richter project, we've been asking the wrong and leading questions. Questions presented all lead to the proposals that make the original project proposal look like it's a good alternative. I'm familiar with this tactic, but it only works if you assume the other person accepts that the options presented are the only ones available. Right? An example is, what would the plot look like if Michael Richter was never part of the original design? The engineers answered the question that was presented to them. The questions that should have been asked are, this is what we have now and have had for 17 years. What muster should be done that completes the project from where it is now? Is there an option with no or minimal construction required? Have we asked facilities, assuming that Michael Richter Road extension is removed permanently, what is the minimum project that needs to be done here to close this out? I'm using the word minimum not to say that we should shortchange the village development, but in an attempt to preserve the most funds possible. All of us here know that we have a lot of other projects in the village that should be a higher priority than the one being discussed. As far as precedent that's been brought up, Diane pointed out that accepting this subdivision unfinished would set a precedence for the future that may lead other developers to expect the same, thus adding a future cost burden to the village. I would propose that this subdivision has already been established and accepted by the village for more than a decade and a half. I would also note that no such attempt has been cited saying another developer attempted to use this subdivision as an example. Therefore, the idea that this would set a precedence is purely unfounded speculation meant to intimidate and influence the vote tonight. If this project were scrapped altogether today, the status quo would remain. And since no one has tried to use this in a decade and a half, I think the concern of precedence being set here is unjustified. The matter of fairness. The majority of those here believe that the present Parker Heights special assessment is unfair, and the current plan is to be changed to the agreement to reflect the same assessment rules as the rest of the village. So I would pose the question to all of the board. If we believe this agreement unfairly burdens the residents of Parker Heights, then why would you believe that using it one last time to assess them and then fix it is at all fair and just? Right? If it is unfair, it is unfair. Change the agreement and then remove the temptation from any future board to again unjustly assess this small group of residents. If this agreement didn't exist, how would the village move forward? Would this project be so important? How would it be paid for? As far as the options that were presented, in my opinion, I would take parts of option 1 and parts of option 3. I know that this would result in an assessment. But I would change Brian Rassek's 801 Michael Richter to an Emily Way address and it would still be part of Parker Heights. Do nothing at that end of Michael Richter. Do sewer and water projects that make financial and functional sense, assuming Michael Richter is done forever. Then Brian Rassak can pave his own driveway, like he has requested doing in the past, without putting a curb and gutter in his front yard. Gabriel Lane to Michael Richter connection. I would suggest that we do a cost analysis comparison on this project to determine the cost versus the benefits of this connection. I know we don't like dead ends, but is there a specific cost associated with dead ends? And does that cost exceed the expense of this proposed connection? Right? I suspect that any additional cost accumulated, even over the next 50 years, would still be dwarfed by the cost the expense that is proposed to connect these two streets. It is my belief that since the answer to this question may not fit the narrative that has been pushed, this question has never been asked. We respectfully ask that we revisit the options with the engineers with new guidelines presented to them. Those guidelines being to minimize or eliminate construction projects and the final cost, while also providing the most economical long-term resolution. Now, the village residents and engineers have presented that there is a benefit from the proposed project and that said assessments are based upon a reasonable basis. I would disagree that there has been any benefit presented, and also that said assessments are based upon a reasonable basis. You can ask Bob to explain the reasonable basis clause in the special assessment statutes if you don't understand what I just said. Right? In closing, I'd also like to say that just because the plan doesn't end up at what the board initially proposed, that doesn't mean that the village should pull back all of the funds out of the facilities budget or some funding, and then stick it to the residents to pay 100% just out of spite. Thank you very much for listening.
Next is Andy Marks with 204 Gabriel Lane.
I just want to make sure there's a lot of questions out there that haven't been adequately answered yet, and I just want to remind the board that you are our voice, so when this comes up on the agenda, I'm asking you to ask these questions of each other and debate them or give us answers to them. What is the purpose of this road? Number one. All I've heard so far is maybe traffic flow and safety, but it's a residential area. What traffic flow is? You go home, you go to work, you go home, you go to work. Why do we need flow? Safety, anything added is just gonna increase traffic, not decrease it. Why do we need it now? Last time this development was being thought about, they said that there was no need for that road, and the only reason there would be any construction of it would be to give an emergency access point. Who does it benefit? Not me. I live right on the road, or the proposed road. To me, the only person that benefits from this is the developer of the properties, you said that they will not have access. And if they do not have access, what is the purpose of the road then? Who's going to use it? And has the board considered any other options other than building this road? I know one was proposed here today, but has anybody thought about a green space or a park, or selling it to property owners adjacent to it, where the town would actually collect tax revenues from it instead of paying to maintain it and build it? That's all I have for tonight, and I hope you take this all into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Brian Rassak, 801 Michael Richter Street.
So, what I need from you is you guys to all really think about the impact on all the families involved here. The addition of this road is nothing for us residents. It does nothing for the Parkers, who are the developers that would benefit the most out of this road coming through. If best, the Parkers break even, maybe make a little money on it. The outstanding issue is the fact that to accomplish what the village is trying to do with the development and the cottages on Main Street, while it can be seen in a way to establish acceptable standards for this project, this should have been approached in a different way. The village should not have dangled a carrot Again, these are not my words, these are the administrator's words. They dangle a carrot in front of these developers, and that carrot was the residents' money. Wasn't the village's money. That said carrot would come directly from us as residents. Negotiations of such should not have been done at the expense of the residents. Giving the cottages on Main a tax benefit should not be shouldered by the residents of Parker Heights. The items that were asked of this developer should have been considered when the village turned it into multifamily housing in the first place. Standards should have been put into place. It is simply wrong to give benefit to a developer by reaching into the pockets of residents. There is no issues currently. A resolution can be made to take care of this problem and have no financial impact on the residents. I ask that you take all these considerations into place and listen to your constituents. This does not need to be done. This can be taken care of. Make Hortonville a place where people want to be instead of a place they want to get out of. So I'll just say, thank you.
Tom Banker, 203 Greendale Road.
Kind of like what Brian said here. I think promises were made to the developer. I sat down with Carl before the public hearing, and he showed me and told me that off from every one of these villages, there's going to be a sidewalk going out to that road. Excuse me?
I said there could be a sidewalk.
No, you said there will be a sidewalk, and you're not supposed to respond, but anyway, we sat down for about an hour, and he told me that there would be no roads coming off that road, but there would be sidewalks coming from the buildings out to that road. So, once again, I believe there was promises made to the developers, and I think that now we're going to be suffering the consequences from promises that were made that probably shouldn't have been. I was looking at the three alternatives here, and they listed just all kinds of pros for the ones that they wanted, and in alternative three, I'm looking at one pro, and it's basically just meet the demands of the Parker Heights residents. What about saving the village and those residents $360,000? Don't you think that would be a pro on that side of the equation? All along here, it's just basically, an alternative one, which is the one that you're wanting to put through. They only have one con, and it's just, it just looks like this whole thing is prepared in the light of which they want it. And once again, we come back to the point of benefits. We still have not been told any benefits. Bob in the public hearings sat there and told us no less than 8 times there were benefits, and benefits, but never informed us as to what those benefits were. I just can't believe that you can say that there's benefits when you can't tell us what those benefits are. And then, when all is said and done, and if your road goes through, now are you going to turn around and tax us for those benefits that we were supposed to have gotten? Please, I ask you to look at this thing and do what's right. And once again, you very seldom are proposed with a situation that everyone in the room is 100% against it. Normally, every time you guys have to make a decision, there's a group on that side that are against it and a group on this side that are for it. You have 100% against this. Please listen to your citizens. Thank you.
Ernie Thorpe from 207 Emily Way.
I'm going to echo exactly what he said. We are your citizens. I've been to these meetings, we've been here. We don't want to fight. If you would bring us those benefits and show me why you're gonna take $1,800 or $3,000 out of my wallet, I don't see one of you guys jumping up and saying, you know what, I'll throw in too. We're talking to you. You are choosing not to hear it or not to even bring back anything that we're asking for. I haven't heard a benefit. You go write an $1,800 check for nothing. Write it. Let's see what you ask for in return. It doesn't happen. I don't know what economy you're living in, but I'm living in an economy that I don't have $1,800 to $3,000. But the people that are elected and supposed to be my voice are choosing not to listen to an entire room times, what are we at, 4 times now? 5 times that we've been here? Again, all of us, everybody in this room, board, are here against this. And if you're choosing not to listen, pony up, start chipping in the pot. It's my money. I don't want to spend it. Listen to us. Please listen to us.
Amy Thorpe of 207 Emily Way.
I'll just back up everything else that all the rest of us in here have been saying. I've got nothing new to add. This is crazy.
Pam Yeager, 211 Howard Drive.
All right, going off of what he said, I'm gonna have to say the money isn't even the biggest concern here. It stinks, it's gonna really stink to write that check, you're exactly right. But the biggest thing is just that you are a voice up there, and you're hearing all of us speak. I went around and spoke to so many people in the community, so many people in the village, whether it was social media asking, hey, do you know what's going on here? You know, I called a few of you, and 100% people are like, what? Are you kidding me? Am I really hearing that right? You know, I'm hearing it from other people, but you live there. You've been to a couple board meetings, you've heard this? Yeah, I've actually lived here 35 years and I've never been to a board meeting because I've always felt that they've done a really good job for the citizens of the village of Hortonville. Hence the reason my husband and I live here, he works here, we're raising our kids here. But exactly what was just said, it's almost like you want to run people out of the village by not listening to them. This is our tax money and we are supposed to trust you. Can we trust you? Can we trust you to be our voice? I do know that there was one benefit, the traffic flow, which is not a benefit for an area with people that have kids, which is pretty much what you need in your village to continue your village. And since then, there was another reason that was fabricated, I believe. I don't know, I'm not too good in politics, I don't understand too much, but apparently the sewer wasn't meant to hold up wherever the road ended, therefore this road has to go through. Well, it's held up for 17 years. I understand more people have moved in, so maybe that's the change that I'm not understanding, but then why wasn't that told to us the first time that it was asked by our community members months ago, weeks ago? What are the benefits? That should have been told to us then. If it wasn't then it must not have been a positive at the time, and it later needed to be figured out what can we say is a benefit. Thank you.
Kevin Weber, 214 Gabriel Lane.
Pretty much echo everything that was said already. For a couple months, you showed no benefits whatsoever to our area. All it's going to do is create extra traffic through our subdivision, which is completely unacceptable. Birch, Hickory, and Gabriel are going to become drag strips for all these new vehicles running through our area, not to mention the extra added traffic down Spruce Street, which nobody on Spruce Street has any idea about this road going in there. And I lived on Main Street for 20 years, and when I would come home from shift work and try to get into my house off of Main Street, it was so congested I would actually go all the way around the back and come through Birch, Hickory, and end up back on Spruce just so I could get in my driveway. And Mr. Sorensen said the one meeting that it would help with the traffic flow, and unfortunately it's an uninformed and completely absurd statement because we have no traffic through there whatsoever. I also spoke to many individuals this week in the city, and I actually spoke with a couple members that work with the board on different capacities, and the one person, this is a quote, said he or she finds it very offensive that this road would actually go through. And nobody in this room wants this. It's a horrible waste of our taxpayer money. And I don't understand how you can sit up there with a clear conscience and represent our community and force such a ridiculous project onto the village people. The only benefit that anybody can see is for the developer, because we all know what's going to happen. The road's going to go in, you guys are going to shove it down our throats, and the only one who's going to benefit is the developer, because he's going to have access to that road that he didn't pay a dime for, and it came out of our pockets. And I've heard it a couple different times that it's true, 100% of us in here don't want this, and I don't understand why it's such a hard decision to make. On the social media today, I saw pros and cons for the 3 different choices, and one of the cons was that for the new administration asking to overturn stuff from previous administrations, that's kind of what a democracy is. Just like Trump overturned Obama stuff, Obama overturned Bush's stuff, so on and so forth. That's the idea of a democracy, to overrule stupid stuff. So in my opinion, this is kind of a stupid idea. I also would like to make it public that we went around and did a petition, and I have over 150 signatures, and also an online poll with 85 in agreement with us. So please take into consideration the people that live in the village that this is going to affect. Thank you.
And that's all.
Next on the agenda is committee reports, Planning and Zoning Commission.
We met on Tuesday. The one item is the CSM that we already approved. The other item was when the school district had their, the need for the sign, it came up that's been an issue for a while, that the schools and churches and this building, actually, all municipal buildings are actually in an R1, single-family residential zoning district, and that the standards in that zoning district really aren't suitable for these types of facilities. So we're looking at creating a new district that's institutional or public, quasi-public. So what we're looking at doing is creating a task force that would have representatives of the different properties that would be in such a district to weigh in on it, and that would be the churches, schools, Outagamie County, and the village. So we're going to be looking to see, reach out to those agencies or organizations and see if they will have representatives that would be willing to serve on that task force, and start looking at creating some language to create that zoning district, just like we did with the downtown zoning district, and then at a later date, identify those properties that would be rezoned into it. So that's the next major project on the horizon for planning and zoning.
Library Board?
Nothing new to report, except for our next meeting is May 1st at 3:30 here.
We have no unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business. A is already done. B is appointment of Jamie Mullock to the Hortonville Fire District Commission.
I'll make a motion to approve Jamie Mullock.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Jamie is out. Next is the Michael Richter Street assessment.
I'll start with that. Initially, I had created and had sent around what I would describe on here as alternative 1. And at that time, after the last meeting, I was with the impression that basically my charge was to find a way to lower the assessment to the Parker Heights subdivision. So that's what alternative 1 is. The reason why it's able, even though it sounds contrary to logic, the larger project would result in the smaller assessment. The reason why is because, as some of the people here mentioned, that would open up those 4 lots for development, and then the village could fully assess the outlot, which would be about $100,000 to contribute to the project. And then the increment that would be gained by the development of that outlot could be used to offset the assessment to the Parker Heights subdivision. So that's why, even though it's a bigger project, it would actually be a lower assessment. But then I came to realize that the other part was to try and minimize the project. So alternative 2 is minimizing the project. And Ron, is there something there? Can get into the details on the engineering part, because that is not my forte. But just to explain the reason why this one has a actual higher special assessment is because if only this portion of the project was constructed, then the outlot would not be buildable, so therefore we could not special assess it. And then because it would not have the development, we wouldn't have that additional increment going into the TID. So those are the things, the dollars that were used in alternative 1 to put towards the assessment of Parker Heights to decrease their assessment, because no general levy taxes are going in here. This is strictly funded through the TID. So if no development of those outlots happen, then we don't have that additional money to contribute to it. And I can, if you have questions on the scope of it, that's where I would want to turn it over to Ron, because I don't want to touch that. And then I would say lastly, the other alternative is no, well, actually this is part of Ron as well, is do nothing, leave it as it is, and then that's also where we turn to our village engineer to find out what that entails.
And that was my question to Ron. The way I understand this was designed was basically a temporary to be finished and does need some kind of work. Am I correct on what I understand?
Sure, I'm gonna stand over here just so that everybody can see me. So, I think the question posed in the last, few weeks or month here would be, if Michael Ricker Street, if you turn back the hands of time 20 years and you said, okay, we're never gonna put that through as a through street, what would have happened as part of the Parker Heights plat? What would have the village, and we're speculating, but what would have the village normally required in terms of infrastructure or layout or, planning at that point, 20 years ago or 1970, whatever it is. First of all, the village doesn't terminate streets on purpose anyways with just a dead end. You don't just, end a street. Now, there's some examples, like the end of the street where Lynn lives, that the street ends at a dead end without a cul-de-sac, but the intention is that it's going to be extended at some point. So any place the village knows that it's a permanent termination of a street, you end it with a cul-de-sac. For example, at the, and that's in example number 2, that intersection of Michael Ricker Street and Gabriel, not only would have you chosen to tie that street in as a, say, a 90-degree intersection, the way your ordinance reads, you either have to have a 100-foot centerline radius for a through street, or you end up terminating it, I guess the best example is on Brookwood Drive, the second turn in there, what we'd call an eyebrow cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac isn't put in just, just for grins or just to increase the pavement area. It's put in because that's what the village's requirements in your Chapter 8 require. If you have to have a certain radius, if you will, on the intersection like that. So you don't normally just, you either have to have a 100-foot centerline radius on the street, which would eliminate the lot, I don't know the lot number, maybe 1, on the extreme northwest corner of the plat. You'd either eliminate that lot to cut that corner with a 100-foot radius, or you'd make it a 90-degree intersection with an eyebrow cul-de-sac hanging off of it. Same thing for the other end. It's a short distance in, but if you're going to provide frontage, village street frontage off of that extension of Brookwood Drive, you would have terminated that in a cul-de-sac. Also, the water main system right now, we've got 3 dead ends that are just hanging out there. As a policy with a water system, we don't terminate a water main with just a cap and leave it indefinitely. We'll do that if we know that the intention is that it extends out in the future so that it can be connected and looped So Carl doesn't have problems with stagnant water or flushing issues or all the rest. So, there were some things done in anticipation or with the knowledge at that point that Richter would go through. The infrastructure was stubbed in such a way that the street would go through at some point, the water main would go through, sanitary sewer was stubbed out so that it could serve any other development that would exist west of the Brookwood Drive and Emily intersection. So that exercise that Diane talked about as far as number 2 would basically be saying, okay, if there was never any means to acquire the property or the right of way to run Richter Street through what might have happened back 20 or 15 years ago in terms of an approved plan that the board would have done at that time to terminate it in some other manner. Unfortunately, all those cul-de-sacs and that, they consume a ton of real estate, they consume pavement, they consume curb, they're very expensive. That's why the cost savings isn't really that great. If you're going to terminate them according to your design standards, you burn up a whole bunch of money creating pavement and cul-de-sac. Whereas if you just ran a standard 37-foot road through, by the time you build a cul-de-sac on both ends, you've almost expended as much money doing that as if you just push the road together. So does that help? I guess in a nutshell, I don't want to get into the details of it too much if you don't have a desire to. But.
I have a question.
Sure.
So the current utility layout, and you talked about this, they cap it off, they end it off. And because I've been asked a ton of questions about this, and I am conveying what's been asked to me, if we leave those capped off, and maybe this is more of a Carl question, is there a life expectancy on that? Is it a temporary cap off, or this could be considered permanent?
They're PVC, modern PVC. I don't see it going bad anytime soon.
So there's not a life
expectancy. Long past our
expectancy.
lifetime.
Okay, so there's not a life expectancy.
100 years,
thing. Okay.
80 years, whatever.
Just making sure.
Going off of that question, is there more of a benefit to complete that loop than to leave them capped off?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, as part of the development, the cottages on Main, there's part of that infrastructure development includes a water main that goes through not only just to serve a hydrant and all the domestic demand in the apartments, but is heading out the north side, and the intention was that ties into what we presumed at that time would be the water main in Richter Street. We try and network all of the water system so that there's a bunch of redundancy though, so if there's a bad valve or a water main break or something that happens somewhere in the system, you can isolate an area and backfeed. So your calculations for your fire flows to the industrial park and all those type of things are all contingent on this network system, this mesh, if you will, of water main. You don't lay out a water system with a bunch of dead-end tails all over because it's just hydraulically inefficient. You tie those tails together so that you can convey the fire flows and the domestic flows. Also, anytime you tie them together, you don't have that stagnant water in those dead ends that we haven't had much problem. The water quality here is pretty good in Hortonville, but some communities have horrific problems with dead ends, even cul-de-sacs with 6-inch mains and the hydrant on the end. Sometimes they have to flush them many times per year because the water gets stagnant before it gets consumed. You don't really have that issue here in town, but as a policy, you'd never leave those tails sit capped off, not connected.
And Ron, I just want to clarify, because you had, something that you said is that the connection that Cottages on Main has to that is not just the benefit of the cottages, that's to finalize the loop.
Sure.
Is that correct?
Sure. Well, it serves two purposes. It's a
Right.
domestic main to serve their property, but the rationale is, okay, they're 2/3 or 75% of the way across that property. We have a limited number of connections. Say Spruce Street, for example, is one water main connection, although I think that's a small main. But anytime we have an opportunity without much cost to create another network with that pipe mesh, we take it. And there wasn't much cost to go out that south side of Cottages on Main to extend that main through and connect in. And their water quality is better as a result of it, because now that creates another connection from the Main Street system to the system ultimately that ties out, say, to Nye Street. So again, you're creating that mesh of mains. without having a bunch of dead ends.
Carl, how many dead ends do we have in the village? Approximately, because I know we do have more. Isn't there some in the industrial park?
There's one on Stocks, oh, no, not Stock Street, but there's quite a few actually.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
So sewer storm, if it's,
Sewer can dead end anywhere, that's not.
sewer can dead end, that's not, okay, just want to make sure.
Water, you'd like to tie it in again to, again, like Rhonda expressed with.
Any concern about fire hydrant, the quantity of fire hydrants in that area? Was there ever a plan like, oh, we can miss this one because we can do it later? I mean, is there anything that we need to worry about for fire hydrant?
I don't think
I
so.
think you're okay. You'd have to have an intermediate. You're right at the cusp, but you're okay with it, with those vacant property, with that property that Parker retains undeveloped, you're okay.
But if it would ever be developed, would we
Then-
be in trouble with our fire hydrant capacity?
But the only way it would develop
Quantity.
is if you created the Richter Street connection and then we shuffle everything around to get them in the right spot. And the
I
right-
believe there's a fire hydrant in the field right now.
And the right- yeah,
There is a Richter.
There is? Okay, I was trying to look on a
Yeah,
Google map.
sitting out there, available.
Right.
You know,
I was trying to look on the map.
that's a dead end.
Right.
You.
Just had a question with, so if Michael Richter was never going to be put through, would there still have been all these dead end water mains going through?
No.
Or how would that have been?
No, we would have, at that point, I would assume that the piece on existing Ricker Street would have been tied together with Gabriel. For example, I'm not quite sure what we would have done on the Brookwood and Emily corner. If we knew it wasn't gonna go any further, there probably wouldn't have been a main, there would have just been laterals probably off of that intersection, so. The main thing would have been probably to be, tie that piece together between Ricker and Gabriel, excuse me.
All right. And looking at the different alternatives, and this is maybe more of a Diane question or maybe Bob question. If we did some sort of finishing off curbing or did something, the absolute minimum to just make sure that whatever's finished off, I look at Brian Ratzak's property. Would he be assessed for that, or is that a shared assessment? How does that work? Because this project, if let's say you put curbing there and then he was allowed to do a driveway and that sort of thing, who's responsible for that cost? So you're saying that would be Brian?
All for the northern half of that road, yeah. And that was another agreement as well.
I'm kind of new at this. I have a question. Can the sewer and water be done without the road being done? If that makes sense.
Sure, the water main could be run through a loop, get rid of all the dead ends and get the hydrants positioned where they need to be, including even the tie-in to the cottages on the main piece. The sewer, the sanitary sewer, if that's what you're speaking of, there's no need to. If there's not gonna be road access and development on the vacant property of Parker's, you wouldn't spend the money for the infrastructure then for the sanitary sewer. Storm sewer, boy, that gets pretty vague, and quite frankly, I'd wait till we probably work through that with maybe a public works committee meeting or something, because we got a combination of, again, it was intended that a pipe system would continue from Richter Street, Gabriel intersection, continue down to the east and tie into a pipe that we stubbed out when we did Brookwood Drive, whatever that was, 25 years ago. Right now, those pipes just kind of dead end and some temporary ditching, and it just kind of weaves its way through that brush and trees there. I'm not even sure what I'd suggest, what we do for a Band-Aid, if you will, with the storm system, if you're not going to put Richter Street through. I'm sure there's a solution, I'm just not sure what is palatable long-term. Sanitary is easy. If there's no need or if you're not serving anybody, and cottages on Main doesn't need a sanitary service, so if that land is going to stay vacant and everybody's conceding that, then you wouldn't extend the sewer. Water main you could do, you could grade it out, put the water main in, seed it back, make it lawn, grass, park, whatever you want to do, and just leave the water main under, you don't have to build a road above the water main, certainly, you can just run the water main through, so.
But if we didn't complete that intersection, according to our policies, ordinance, whatever, we have to put cul-de-sacs on Michael Richter and Gabriel?
Your design standards either call for a 100-foot center line radius on a curve in the road. If it's T intersection, that's fine, but if it's gonna end in some other way, the normal solution to that is a cul-de-sac of some type to allow for either emergency vehicles to turn around or for Carl's snowplow operations to turn around. You normally don't just end a street in a tight 90-degree intersection if it's just two legs of a street, if you will.
And like you had commented earlier, the cost on cul-de-sacs or completing that connection is about the same.
Well, it's less money to build two cul-de-sacs. Not much less though. I mean, anybody that drives through Brookwood all the time sees, you've got that, well, anybody that lives anywhere on a cul-de-sac, you've got an expansive amount of asphalt and stone base and curb and gutter deployed to create a cul-de-sac. So if you're gonna create two cul-de-sacs and you take that same area, boy, you're darn near touching in the middle, there's maybe a few hundred feet left. So you're not saving an enormous
And that
amount.
would put them out of somebody's lots, though, wouldn't it?
I was just gonna say, but for that area, do we even have the land? for
Well,
it?
exactly, we don't, and that's another point of discussion, is that in order to create an eyebrow cul-de-sac, you'd have to acquire right-of-way from either, I think that lot is still undeveloped, is the lot undeveloped on the northwest?
Number one?
Yeah, number one.
No, I thought we were talking about Gabriel and
But
Michael.
you can either do it inside or
That's all
out,
developed.
but the presumption would be you'd have to probably acquire right-of-way to do it if you want to do it that way, so it gets, it gets even more burdensome.
Which would probably make it more expensive than just connecting to. If you had to acquire right away.
So then you don't need, you can dead end it.
Well, Ron,
According to our policy, we have to put in either cul-de-sac or finish it. That's the way ours are set up. So we can't just leave it a dead end.
we have a lot of
But those dead ends were put there, like up by Lynn, that, okay, this is one day going to be developed down here, the street is going to go through.
So, Ron, we did a 90-degree from Michael Richter to Gabriel to connect it. Couldn't we use the extension for Michael Richter on the west side as an ingress, egress to the property that it could be developed? Couldn't we deed over some of that right away to, and maybe this is for Bob, we deed it over to the Parkers?
Oh, when you're talking about the north of 204 Gabriel.
Right. And we did that over and we used that west, this is what Carl and I talked about, came up with the other day. And then we took the Rat Sack residents at Brookwood and just changed it over to the, what's 801 Michael, Richter now, change it over to a Brookwood Drive. So we could use the west side of that, you gotta do the infrastructure changes there anyway.
So
There's already water and sewer there, and you're gonna have to extend it for the cottages on Main. So if we deed that right away over to the Parkers, so they can add it to the outlots and use it for development, they could use the west side of Michael Richter as an ingress, egress. You see where I'm going?
I was thinking you were talking about ingress, egress to cottages on Main.
But it doesn't affect these people at all.
You're talking about creating a private drive.
Correct.
On what would have been the Michael Richter Street corridor.
Correct.
So we would vacate the right-of-way,
Deed it over.
deed it to the Parkers, then they would.
Per dollar. You're gonna pick it up in the tax base anyway. It's just throwing it out there.
I mean,
It doesn't affect these people at all, but, and Parkers would have to pick up as an assessment all those costs because they would end up utilizing that for their private drive.
Okay, but
to a project.
did you mention though, and help me out here, Peter, you said something about Michael Ricker and Gabriel. What did you say about that initially?
Here. See, right now, they both dead end, it was
Yeah.
never completed. So you just make a 90-degree turn, but then if you're going east on Michael Richter, you would go into this private drive.
yeah, I think a little bit would depend on if you're rezoning or not, if it's residential.
But That's an issue, that's a rezoning issue.
But every residential property is required to have 30 or 50, what's one or the other, I don't remember your ordinance that well, but you're required to have either 30 or 50 feet of public street frontage. Is that right? Does that sound right?
Something like that, yeah.
Now, if you did multifamily or, or something, you might be able to get away from that, but to just put in a private joint drive and split it up into 4 or 5 single-family residential lots.
I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about
anything even more.
Like an upscale private or townhome project, maybe 4 units.
I mean, if it was PUD or some other zoning,
that minimizes everything. It takes the burden off of them. Puts the assessments back onto the developer, takes care of the other east end of Michael Richter. The Ratsack residents can be cleared up, you'd have a private drive. I think that's a pretty good solid resolution for this issue.
Yeah,
if it could be done, and those are cost estimates that you and Carl can work on.
You'd want to think about which way you bring that property out, because if there's a concern on, say, Emily, any of those streets about traffic to dump out some sort of multifamily residential development in that lot, and to solely push it out onto the intersection of Gabriel and Richter is going to do just the opposite of what these folks were hoping. That's going to increase the traffic explicitly on those back streets. If you rent out the east end, it probably least...
East end is a Ratsack, I don't know if he wants it all down his road, but here's the issue. Everything on Emily there is all apartments anyway, so what's the difference? If you have 4 townhomes, these are all apartments.
You mean, you said on Emily.
Right.
Emily's over here.
I'm sorry.
Okay, but it's Michael.
On the west piece of it.
Right, on the west side, there are a bunch of apartments, I drove down in there today, so.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not really adding much. If the Parkers developed that and there were 4 townhomes, what are you talking, maybe 4 to 6 vehicles? It's not a big issue, and it's a private drive. He hadn't,
Again, it's a land use planning exercise, not.
But then I got a question, just because we keep saying the Ratsack property that he'd be able to do what he wants. I'm looking at Brian right now, I don't know, that assessment for you, are you talking just putting a driveway in?
I don't know.
Curb and gutter, I mean.
Well, you'd have to move some storm sewer inlets, and then, we'd have to go against our design ordinance to round that curb off, and then give Brian the northern half of what would have been Michael Ricker.
But then if he wanted to do something with that, that's his deal, that's his deal.
He can put in a driveway, whatever he wants. I think that's what he's wanted all along.
Yeah, you okay with that?
Without getting into way vast discussion, I mean, we are listening, we do hear, we do take these calls. It's just, this is not an easy discussion.
I mean, we minimize the traffic flow. If you've got, again, I'll go back and say what I said before, 4 townhomes, 6 townhomes, whatever it is, that traffic dumps out to Gabriel on the west side, where there are apartments already. Doesn't come out on
The one thing
Ratsack's property.
that, like Ron said, that would require rezoning, so then we'd have public hearings and a rezoning for that, and that's,
It's been 17 years, we can...
But now we've got folks here on Gabriel Lane, and we just said we're gonna dump that traffic on Gabriel Lane. And Kevin Weber just said he doesn't want that traffic.
4 to 6 vehicles?
4 to 6 vehicles, okay, so you're just talking...
Well, they were saying no vehicles,
Okay.
no people even walking up to their place, so.
But does that, okay, and I maybe I have a case of the dumb, Michael Ricker here. So we would be, in a sense, yes, connecting, or
Right.
this would just be a driveway?
Where's that map?
I see that,
Did you take a look at the map?
The map is, yeah.
Right here, but it doesn't.
Okay. Yeah, the one you pointed out there.
So we're putting road there or driveway?
Well, that's what was originally planned 17 years ago, so we're going to complete that.
Okay.
So coming from...
So you're not doing it.
So folks,
Back to Parkers. Yeah,
Because
so we need to divide that.
90 degrees right there.
Okay.
And then on that, just comes across the garage. And the right of way gets deeded back, deeded over to the developer. I mean, it's a simple resolution.
Except for Brian.
Well, but you mentioned $100,000. That would go away. That goes away.
Well, how do we pay for this though?
Your solution would take in the entire right-of-way of Michael Richter, right? I would think there would be a reversion to the adjacent property owners. If you had a street vacation, that's where it came from. So the south half would go to the Parker property, and the north half would go to the
Developer.
Falster property. Yeah, the
To the Falsters or over to?
Well, the cottages on Main.
Well, Brian would get this piece. They would
So put down the middle.
Okay.
So now, I mean, you have half of the,
Half of the right of way goes to the north, the other half goes to the south.
Right.
That's not bad.
okay, but I'm just saying, maybe you thought the entire
Okay.
rate.
No. So in that respect, we'll pick it up on the tax levy. Either way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, as far as what you're dealing with.
Right.
We got half of that.
Right.
Okay, but there's still gonna
What
be
is it, a
cost.
40 foot or 50 foot right away?
It's 60 foot right now.
Okay, so they have 30 feet property to each other.
Just pointing that out.
Yeah.
But you still can't pay for it either.
Okay, but how do you pay for this? This doesn't qualify for TID funds, right?
Right. How does it affect the kid?
If we don't finish Michael Richter to get TID funds for that development, we don't have those
We
funds.
don't have TID funds, so who
So how much
pays?
TID funds do we have?
We don't have any unless development comes in. It's as the development comes in, then that creates TID funds to then
Yeah.
use for projects. But we can't,
Besides, he doesn't want to build there and just sell it to the residents.
then we would have no way of paying, what typically happens is that the village takes out a loan for a project, and then the funds that are collected from TID as development happens is used to pay back the loan, and then pays it in full. So what would happen in that case is the village would take out the loan, but we wouldn't have the TID funds to pay that. And also in this other, where I had run the scenario, is that there was enough funds from the TID that could actually pay the project after assessment to, the full assessment to the Parkers for the outlot. There would be enough funds created with the development that could also pay for the rest of that project, or a portion of it, and pay down what would be normally assessed to the Parker Heights subdivision. So right now, we don't have any TID funds.
Right.
That was contingent upon development coming in.
So how many years would it take us to get TID funds?
It depends on if Michael Ricker isn't built, then that outlot can't be developed, so then there wouldn't be any. Because it's not developable unless it's...
What Peter's saying, it could be developed if Parker wanted to develop it.
Yes, then if that happens, then...
If he didn't want to and sold it to these people, we wouldn't have any development.
Correct.
So the funds would not be
If
there.
it was developed, we have TID funds. If it's not developed, we do not.
So under my proposal is we do what I talked about, gives Parker every opportunity to develop that property, thereby not affecting your TID funds.
Correct, but if it's not, then we're holding the bank.
We'll hold them to it. We'll draft some kind of
That could
agreement, developer's agreement that make sure he covers those assessments and develops that property and give him a period of time to do it.
Well,
Then we don't jeopardize our TID project.
We still have the concern of the rezone, and I know that is a different thing, however, it still requires a public hearing.
So we go through a public hearing. That's standard operating procedure.
I'm not...
Don't throw any negatives to this.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just saying that that's the process, so we could have other people that are opposed to that, is what I'm saying. Because that's a public hearing, so we might, I mean, that's not
Public
known.
hearing.
Where do we get the money to do that, Gabriel, to Michael Ricker? Where does that money come from? Is that being assessed?
Yes.
If the project doesn't go through to then make Outlot 1 developable, then that's why it was assessed 100% there, because in no scenario are we putting regular general levy tax funds to this. If it goes through, we are relying on the TID funds that are generated and then the assessment to Outlot 1 to offset the cost to Parker Heights residents. In absence of that development, then we can't assess Outlot 1 and we don't collect the TID funds.
Who is being assessed if we did Michael Richter or Gabriel, is it this group of people or is it?
No.
Correct. Yes.
What, you
If
mean,
we just,
if we do Michael Richter?
no,
No.
Just the curve that you're
That
talking
curve that
about.
you're talking about. See, there's still, it has, that's what I'm worried about right now.
No. My proposal was not to assess these 54 residents.
I don't know if we could come up with the funds for that.
Hear me out. My proposal was to assess the Parkers, because that would be the, and listen to what I said before, open your ears, ingress and egress for their property that we're going to deed half of the right of way over to. And
I
that would
don't
be,
deserve this. Disrespect, that's.
Peter, we need to be respectful. Just
I
like,
apologize, I don't want to repeat myself.
but I don't understand it, and I'm listening, and I've opened my ears. So what you're saying is that you would assess Parkers, and do we have something in place that we can do that right now, or are we?
It'd have to be by agreement.
It would have to be by agreement, and that means that's a two-way deal. What if they
That's
don't
right.
agree to that?
Correct.
Then we're back to this discussion again.
That's correct, that's the way I see it.
So I guess the idea would be that somebody sit down with the Parkers and come up with some kind of an agreement, an understanding.
I mean, I think that's
It's an
where
agreement.
we're at. I mean, I think, because obviously, we hear these people, they don't want this full Michael Ricker. Okay, well, then we need to start looking at alternatives. You've come up with some alternatives, but we can't make any promises or anything unless we've actually talked to the people we've made an agreement with.
And Diane and I have talked to Brian Parker on assessing him for finishing Michael Richter in that section, and he would be assessed 100% for, well, you know, the percentage that's supposed to be. Well, the same as our regular assessment policy. So he knows that it's roughly $100,000 he would be assessed for that. He knows that up front.
Yeah.
And these folks would not be assessed, or I'm even talking the rat sacks, this would not incur assessments or charges on, for them if this developer's agreement with the Parkers is a go.
What's the cost of what you're hearing this proposal, Ron?
Well,
Is this, I mean, what
I
are the
don't know
costs?
if I fully understand what the scope is, but I'm going to presume that the water main is run all the way through. So we get rid of all the dead ends and we run all 850 feet of water main and tie everything up with the water system. Right or wrong, I'll presume that. I would presume that we would extend Ritter Street to Gabriel, create basically a T intersection with a piece facing east that would then at that point be a private drive. Is that correct? I'm just spitballing here because I don't know, everybody's in a different spot here. So, storm sewer, I don't know what we have involved with there, I just have to, again, you know, we'll figure out a solution, but it's gonna cost some dollars, but, you're probably, oh boy, this is dangerous because everybody's gonna remember this number, but you're probably, in the vicinity of a $125,000 project to extend the water main, move the hydrants where they belong, finish up that street intersection, pave it, curb and gutter, move some inlet, I mean,
And for everybody out here, this is just off the top of his head. He hasn't sat down and looked back at the numbers. So, I mean, don't say, take his word for it, until he sat down and looked at it
because I had about
comprehensively.
30 seconds to make a hunch, but, you know, I've been doing it for 2-3 decades, so the instinct says it'd be in that range.
But these folks are here because there's several concerns, and that's what I would just want to make sure, that we don't walk out of this meeting and there's the impression that, well, this is what we're going to do, but there has to be a meeting with the Parkers, there has to be an agreement made, right? And I guess at this point, I mean, do we make some sort of, we make a motion to defer this until something can be spoken with the Parkers? I'm looking at you because I don't know.
Well, you'd either have a motion to take one of the, a motion for one of the alternatives, I would say, or a motion to get more information or a motion to, well, it'd be a table of some sort. We tabled the last time to this, or adjourned, let's say, rather than table, to this meeting on Peter's motion. That is an option. That's
And that's actually at E, because this is just talking about the assessment part of it. The actual action item is at E on the
Yes.
agenda.
Okay, so this, okay.
Yeah, we're not talking, right, the E is the action item, but if you're not in a position to know the scope that you are going to approve.
So, okay, because we're discussing this, and I know that this isn't a public hearing by any means, but does this seem feasible by a nod of heads or a shake of heads? I mean, I'm just trying, I mean, I don't know what to do, because I've been asked so many questions, and sometimes my questions are now being perceived as I'm one side or the other. I'm not, I just
Well, let me say this.
want to do the best thing for everybody.
No, you want to do what's best for the village, okay? And
Yeah.
the entire village, okay? That's, you're all stewards, and that's our job. That's all we can do. And hopefully, what's good for the village coincides with everybody's interests at times, but that's your job.
Okay. No, that's the problem. I would hate for us to go to Parker's and then they don't agree to it and then we're back. And then when we come back, I guess we just start rehashing again. I don't,
Are we all on the same page about the project concept, what I outlined? Everybody understand where I'm going with this? And the division of the right-of-way, 50/50 to north and south, which benefits to, who's the property holder on the north side? Yeah, but I mean, what's their
that to us.
What's our name? Oh, Commonwealth Development? Yeah, and the park.
What did you mean?
Sure, but if we're thinking,
The right-of-way is 60 feet, so 30 feet of,
Oh, this.
yeah. No.
I'm okay deferring it, the agenda, but I guess I'd like to give folks an opportunity to be
30
able
feet to
to
them.
comment on it
What about that piece?
between now and then.
The other half of Brian's piece?
Both, everybody.
Will we give it to those people?
No, give it to Brian.
They do have another spot at the end of our meeting for comments.
They want to.
That's good.
Want to ask him? You ask him.
Do we have any more discussion on the assessment? Next on our agenda is the wheel tax.
I passed around some information. This was, Julie had mentioned it, I know I mentioned it in the past too. Since we have trouble paying for and getting any road projects done. I mean, just in general, because of levy caps and state budget woes and everything else. So I did some initial research on a wheel tax. Typically in the communities, it's between $10 and $30. New London just passed one. This is, excuse me, annually. Each time that you register your vehicle, then you pay a wheel tax if you live in a community that has a wheel tax. The DOT does the collection of it when people register their vehicles. Anybody that lives in the village of Hortonville then that has a vehicle, when they register it, would be required to, say, another 10 or 20, whatever the village decides. The DOT keeps 17 cents of each wheel tax collected as an administrative fee, and the rest is turned over to the village. And it is required that it can only be used to pay for transportation-related expenses. So this is a way that the village could gather or get money aside from the general tax levy, since again, we're so limited with levy caps and so forth. This would be a way that we could generate some revenue for the purpose of roads.
It would also help with assessments.
Yes, it could, I mean, it,
Could be
I would promise that.
It could be used to lower assessments.
It could be to alleviate, not remove, because the amount that we would generate would not be enough to complete any project. But it would take off some pain. We currently, according to DOT, in 2017, We had a total of 7,632 vehicles in the village that would be subject to a wheel tax. So, say, if
So
the
that's
village shows $10.
Taking out the exceptions, because aren't there different vehicles that are accepted to that?
From what I could tell, these were the ones that were included in it.
Do the municipalities charge the same per vehicle regardless of
Yes,
size?
that's my understanding. From what I could tell, it's just a flat amount, 10, 20, 30.
Probably just from an administrative perspective.
Yeah, I suspect that's a requirement of DOT because that would, I would think that their administrative costs would be higher. There's no cost to the municipality to do this because it's DOT that collects the funds and then gives it to the municipality. But it's something that the municipality would vote on and then pass and determine what the amount would be per vehicle. Some counties do it.
So, taking your numbers into consideration here, if we truly did have a total of 7,632 vehicles, and we assessed $20, we're talking $147,000.
Minus 17 cents on the dollar. I mean, on the fee.
On the fee, okay.
But pretty much, correct.
All right.
So that sits in a fund here, it has to sit, just
for roads, right?
traffic things.
Yes, and it has to be solely devoted to transportation-related expenses, so maintenance, construction, strictly on transportation.
And does this have to go to a referendum? I know.
Not at this point. The state, that was one of the proposals in this past budget or recently, was that this be required to go to referendum. It does not currently. I did look into the entire process. I've just been trying to scramble it together, but I suspect it's probably a public hearing. I don't know that for sure, but ultimately it's a vote of the board. And like I said, the city of New London just recently, within this past year, passed theirs. I should say that, yeah, within the past calendar year, not in 2018. I think it came into effect in 2018.
So are these dollar charges per vehicle or per
Correct.
wheel?
Per vehicle.
When you pay registration, there's your little registration card in the mail, it's tacked onto there.
So I'm not looking for any motion to approve or anything like that. I guess what I'm kind of looking for is, you know, if you want to consider this further, I could look into the process. I just wanted to get you the initial information on what it would mean for the village.
I think we should move forward and get a little bit
Yeah.
more information on it.
I agree. I think it's worth looking into, and I think it's a viable, it'd be interesting to find out how, with New London, how that's been panning out for them.
I know it was unanimous.
In Appleton, I know the only snafu they had was that if you had an Appleton address, but you actually lived in Grand Chute, if it was charged on your card, then you had to call and they would remove it.
Yeah.
There was just that little snafu, but other than that,
And that is, you know, I know that happens a lot where, I mean, frankly, we get phone calls in administration where people ask for zoning information and so forth when they don't live in the village because they assume because they have a Hortonville mailing address, that means that they live in the village. So I know that does happen where some of the municipalities actually ended up getting extra because people have that mailing address and didn't realize it was different.
So the information you gave us is just village people?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I was shocked at how many vehicles we have, and I think most of them are sitting in his driveway.
all right. So I agree. I think we should move forward and get more information on it.
All right, I'll look further into the process.
Thank you.
Any other comments on, or questions on the wheel tax? Next is agreement for professional services with McMahon, 2018 Michael Richter Water and Sewer Main and Street Construction Project. Now as we're,
Well, obviously, the construction plan that's here is not what we were just talking about.
this is where we either proceed with McMahon for one of the alternatives, or table it, or what Bob had explained earlier.
I think we move forward because we have an idea of where we want to go with this. So if Ron can provide us with some estimates on the engineering of the water, the infrastructure, or what we talked about, and anything that you think needs to be done on the east end, I think that's kind of dead end there, right? Or is there any loop we have to continue?
One second, I want to interrupt just a second here. We can have him put those estimates through, but we can't make a motion to agree to absolutely do this project without the agreement.
Well, no, I'm talking about his costs. We should have some cost as to what.
We gotta pay him for his time, too.
Yeah, we gotta pay him, so we have to have
Right, but that would be outside of this agreement. I mean, you're not in a position to
Right.
hire him for
This is-
this,
Correct.
that scope. That has to be changed, but you can hire him on a time basis to give you that information.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Is that fair, Ron?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, once we know what we're building, we'll give you another number.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah, we're spending money, so we need a motion.
Yeah, so I'll make the motion to hire Ron McMahon and Associates to give us a cost proposal.
well, do you want to maybe help with your own motion, Ron?
Yeah.
So we're just what you're doing.
We're just gonna proceed
The scope of work.
We're gonna proceed on a time and expense basis to assist the village in analyzing the infrastructure options.
Fair enough.
Does that sound like what you said?
And I will
What he
second
said.
it. And I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Approved. Now we'll move on to the next one. First Amendment to Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions for Wildlife.
I'll take this. Wild wind?
Yes.
Did you say wild wind?
Wild wind.
Okay, I said misheard you, okay. So, if you remember on the development agreement we had with Wild Wind, it called for a homeowners association, but the sole purpose was the only concern the village had was the maintenance of the island and the sign, that common ground. The village did not want to be responsible in any way, so this is the, on double T there, the type development, I would call it. So when you come in, his plan is to have an island that would be in the middle of the street, kind of like what Wildwood has there, with a sign, okay? But the village has had problems in the past with these that, all of a sudden, years later, people expect the village to maintain them. And so, make it clear in new development agreements that should be the developer's cost. We were going to do that by homeowners association, but they came back and said, can't we just do it this way? This would obligate the people in that area to do it, either the owners or the subsequent owners. This will be recorded. There's no obligation at all in the village to get involved. And so it satisfies staff at this point. It's being appropriate. Questions? Julie?
So is this to say like Clegg or Vans are the ones to be responsible for it then?
That's right. The owners, which, right now, as long as actually any decisions are reserved by Vans and James Land Company while they're involved, and after they're involved, then it goes to the owners.
The area owners.
Yeah, the area owners in the 30 lots there, okay?
And do the area owners know this is going on? I don't, because
they don't have the same
They don't want to move along.
Okay, yes, because this gets recorded, Jeannie.
Yeah, we have another one here that's been recorded.
Fine. Well, that's the way it works. I can't really redo the legal system here, get personal notes to everybody, okay? So this is going to be recorded, but it's at a time where there's nobody, they haven't had any closings yet, Jamie. So this will be provided, I'm sure, by the developers, and it's going to be part of their title record. And that's all we can do.
And hopefully they read it.
Yes, we provide notice of record. That's the only way of doing this, okay?
And so right now, if two people own homes in that area, those two people are responsible versus however many more lots they sell.
Sure.
Okay, so that they...
But now, they're going to build it initially, so, this is an example of something that, how many years is it going to be before there's maintenance work maybe required on it? It's going to hopefully be quite a while.
Yeah.
But, future owners...
Their original proposal was that the village assess everybody for it, that we make it be done, that we do hire someone to take care of it, and then we assess the property owners, and we said, oh, no.
So
No.
who's taking care of this until they sell a home?
Anybody but the village. Yeah, the current owners.
Under the original development agreement, the current owners, the developers are fully responsible for this. Okay, this just supplements that, like I said.
Okay.
Instead of having the homeowners association we always said we weren't going to take care of the sign in that common area. It's the manner in which we're doing it. They didn't want a homeowners association. I said, if you come up with a different agreement that is recordable, that's fine. It says the same thing. It says that the majority of the owners are going to have the ability to make decisions on that, and that the costs will be shared then. And it's up to them for enforcement. Okay? So I'd ask for a motion on
Years
that.
from now is going to be.
So you're looking for a motion?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the First Amendment to Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions for Wild Wind. There's no specific date on this.
No, and I would just, it's going to be executed by Al and Lynn on the village's behalf, so I guess if you would just authorize that you approve it and authorize them to sign this agreement.
In that motion, I'll authorize the clerk treasurer and the village president to move forward with this agreement.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you.
Get back to my agenda here. Downtown zoning code.
All right, that, at the last meeting, I had gone over the suggested revisions that the Planning and Zoning Commission did based on the input from the public hearing, and that was the changes to the signs, sign regulations, allowing for additional signage up to 15% for the multi-tenant buildings downtown. Other than that, they recommended no further changes. I brought this to this board at the last board meeting, just letting you know that I was coming forward with it for final approval, and so that's what this is with that recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to make the one change regarding the signage, allowing for multi-tenants to have up to 15% of the building frontage in signs, and no other changes be made to the downtown zoning code. Now, this is for the code, the regulations. Our next step will then start rezoning properties into this new district. So right now, it's code only and nobody lives in it. And so I am asking for the approval of this planning of the downtown zoning code.
Make a motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
I have a question. Am I still part of that? Should I be abstaining from that? I'm part of that area?
There is no
There is no area.
There is no
There's
area.
no area, so okay.
You're not rezoned into it yet.
Okay, so then I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. R6-18, resolution amending, revising building permit administrative fees.
I'll take this one. This is the creation of a fee structure for demolition projects as necessary to assure compliance with municipal and state regulations. The permit fee based on the type of structure. As of now, our building permits, we just write demo on them. and then we don't charge a fee for demolition permits, but they're actually quite involved, and we've been eating the cost on those. Anyways, single-family residences having 4 or fewer dwelling units would be $25. Those would be overseen by the Director of Public Works. Any other structure governed by Natural Resources Ordinance 447 would be $50, and those are required to fall under a building inspector. Again, it's just to clean up our compliance with the administrative code and to not subsidize those demolition permits. So I'm looking for approval of R6-18.
Does this apply to the Stein, what's the home that's next to Stein property?
Yeah, that would be the lower permit if we paid ourselves.
Does this include any kind of asbestos? I mean, is there a process for that?
It addresses everything.
It addresses.
And that would be in, here's the sample demolition permit.
Okay.
So, yeah, right now, state ordinance calls for your structures that fall under state regulation regarding asbestos and anything else like that. Be followed up on by a building inspector, but we're paying the building inspector to go out and do that kind of stuff. Well, not very often, but, and we're not getting reimbursed for it, so. So just clean that up.
I'll make a motion to approve R6-18.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion?
Well, I would say we have to put agenda item C back on for the next agenda, which is the Michael Ritter Street assessment, and item E on the next agenda, and wheel tax.
Do you think you'll be able to get enough information in 2 weeks for the wheel tax?
Really, it's just about the process. I don't think it'll take much. Actually, I got this today.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was, you know, when...
If not, if I can't, then I'll just push it off, but I don't think it'll be a problem. It's really not a difficult process to actually go through.
Because I've been waiting 2 years for this, so I can wait another couple weeks. Report of village officers, administrator.
I passed around a memo. Every year we have to put in the annual reports for the TIDs, and we'll be having the joint review, the annual meeting of the joint review board will be coming up, and this is in anticipation of that. So just a quick running down. As you know, TID 1 we no longer have, it's closed. TID 2 is our industrial park. We had, in 2017, I showed the 1.95 million in expansions, although we lost 800,000 in PSI was reassessed by the state. They argued their assessment and got it lowered by 800,000. In 2018, we're looking at 450,000 new in expansion. As far as projects, all of the projects in TID 2 are complete. So what we're working on now is whatever new increment is coming in to pay down the last projects that were done, so that the debt is cleared and then that TID would close. And what's cool about that is that then all of that increment that was added since it was first created now comes into the tax levy, the general levy again. So that helps our general levy and just operations tremendously. I don't know when that's going to be at this point yet, but we're getting closer. TID 3 is the retail park. The new construction in 2017 was I'm estimating $5 million from Care Partners. The developer's agreement with the East Village Retail Center requires a minimum of $1.1 million. And the projects that we intend to do with that is that we're still waiting to hear on that MSID grant for Grandview, which would pay for 50% if we are awarded it. And then we intend to use TID funds to go towards that project as well to redo Grandview. But it's contingent on getting that MSID grant, which they're supposed to let us know in March, and we're still waiting. The downtown TID, TID number 4, that's a blighted TID. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Number 4 is West Main Street, which we've been talking about tonight. No construction in 2017. The assessed value expected from the cottages on Main is $1.2 million. Planned projects, the only thing we've got on the scope for that is whatever happens with Michael Ritter. And again, as we discussed before, that would be contingent on the TID funds would be contingent on any other development that goes on. Number 5 is the downtown. That's a blighted district. We didn't anticipate that we'd have new construction in there, which we do not. At some point, we are hoping that TID 3 over at the retail park would be a donor TID to TID 5, which is the downtown one, so that TID 3 could contribute funds to TID 5 to do some improvements in there. And I'm going to be applying for a grant this month, hoping to get $99,999 since you get bonus points for coming in at under $100,000. I was thinking of adding 99 cents, but I didn't want to push it. And we plan on using that for creating a revolving loan fund because ours is down to about $10,000. We've issued 2 in the past year. So our revolving loan fund is getting down there. This would help businesses in that area to be able to do improvements. Clerk treasurer update, I just had this on here in case there's anything from closed session that that could be public, and it can't at this point, so this was just to report out from the previous closed session we had. Police chief update, I just talked to the consultant that's doing our recruiting. They've got a couple of applicants that they feel are suitable and would meet the village's needs. They are planning on doing the initial screening interviews this weekend, and they asked me when you want to meet them and do the interviews from on the village end. So they're ready to have us schedule the interviews that the village would conduct on these candidates at any time. So that's what I need to find out from you guys when you want to schedule those.
Next week.
We could do them there, I could check with next week. Should we see about next Thursday since I know you can't until after 6 and you 6:30.
6.
6?
I'm usually back by 6.
But Dawn, you can't make it until about 6:30. What about starting them? I think there's probably going to only be 2. What about starting it at 6:30 on next Thursday? And I think maybe, given a longer, maybe 45 minutes. All right.
Wait, Wednesday would work better for me.
Okay, anybody on Wednesday?
Works for me.
And again, I gotta check with them, of course, on this too.
See, Wednesday we could do it earlier too.
Well, not for Dawn.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
All right. I'll check with them on this. The consultant is going to be helping us through this process, and they'd be asking the questions, so the consultant will be here for those interviews as well. All right, number 4, emergency sirens. I had mentioned to you guys at the last board that Allegheny County is looking at stopping maintenance on the sirens. They own them currently, so they're looking to turn them over to the communities. I had just initially brought this up. I know we're going to talk about having a public safety committee meeting to further discuss it. We don't need to make any decisions at this point. I just thought I'd update you because I did reach out to New London because I know that they own and maintain 5 sirens, and they have for some time. So I asked them what the estimated annual costs are, and they said it's about $1,500 a year for all 5 of theirs. And they last about 30 years. Ours was purchased in 2014. So again, we still need to make the decision. I just wanted to update you guys on what New London said the estimated costs are. There has been some chatter among administrators in this area online where people have been kind of weighing in on their thoughts, and I know that it seems like many of them are pretty opposed to it. They feel that this is Allegheny County pushing further things off onto the communities. While I don't disagree with them, that's the way the state budget is. Everybody is, and unfortunately, villages, towns are the lowest man on the totem pole, and we don't have anybody smaller to push it off onto. And given that the cost is not that significant, I can see us continuing to do it, but again, that's down the road. Just wanted to update.
One question on that, how many do we have in town?
We only have 1.
Just the 1?
Mm-hmm. And given that it was purchased in 2014 new, so it's in pretty good shape. I think they had to replace a battery on it, and that was at $300. It's been $350 total maintenance costs since 2014.
That's as long as they agree to activate it. They
Yes.
decide in 5 years not to activate them anymore.
And we'd have to also weigh in with our liability insurance and stuff to make sure that we're not taking on any additional liability with taking that on. Number 5, Highway 15 update. On the back of your sheet is, I had mentioned this to you before, is that the League of Municipalities is doing this Just Fix It campaign, and they're picking specific roads in different areas that have been impacted quite a bit by the basically state rating of the transportation budget and not filling it. And so this last one was highlighting Highway 15. DOT has really not talked to us anymore about it. I don't think they like to talk to us anymore because now, as I mentioned last time, instead of just talking about pushing it off time-wise, it appears that they're actually looking at the entire scope of the project. And that's very disappointing for safety, economic, every other reason. But also, they've purchased all of the road right-of-way here, so it's off the tax rolls, and we still don't have a bypass. So just frustrating that...
Maybe that's one thing we have to ask our legislatures, if they change the scope and we don't bypass, are they going to reimburse us for the taxes we've lost since they purchased it?
I'm guessing that would be a no now.
But it's something to ask them.
That's true. I did meet with the Fox Cities Regional Partnership, a new employee from there this past week, and she had asked me if, what I feel that they could do more for us, and I said be more involved in the Highway 15 discussion because, we've gone to the state, we've driven there and talked to the Secretary of Transportation. Frankly, I don't think they care about safety. I shouldn't say that. It's not that they don't care, it's that when we make the argument about safety and people hurt, it just doesn't get the attention. I think we need to put a dollar value to it, and I think we need to make it more about the Fox Valley, that this is a commuting route there. Highway 15 supplies their employees and everything else, so I've asked the regional partnership to help us make that a regional discussion and a regional argument about economic development and workforce. So she said she's going to contact, or reach out to us again. I hope that they do, because we could use some help in being a squeakier wheel.
From what she said, that could possibly be a help, she said, well, she was once a lobbyist. So.
Yeah, and I asked him, because I had spoken to Mark Ramlow, that was head of the chamber, and he and I were going to be doing just this, and then I didn't hear anything from him. Well, I just found out he doesn't work there anymore, so that kind of explains why I didn't hear anything back. But what I'm hoping is that they can reach out to like Bemis and Gulfstream and Oshkosh Corporation, some of these major employers, and have them, the employers and the major companies, tell the state how important it is. So, working on it. But that's where we are. They're actually looking back at the original scope again. That's all.
Any questions for Diane? Hearing none, we'll move on to clerk treasurer.
It's that time of year again where we have new officials and people who are either beginning new terms or in the middle of their terms. The League of Wisconsin Municipalities has their Local Government 101 available this time of year. The form was provided for you so that you could look at this, see the different places that it's being offered, and then let the office know so that those people who want to attend to refresh their information on government and local officials, or who want to see this for the first time, would be able to go and get the info.
Lynn, I didn't get that. Oh, email?
It was part of the packet that was emailed. And you don't have to, you don't fill this out and send in money for it. You just simply let us know so that we can complete the registration form and take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions or comments for Lynn? Hearing none, then we got Public Works.
Yeah, next Monday we have our annual Allegheny County Highways meeting. I believe we're leaving from here at 11 o'clock. Julie, you're going. Diane and Al. Janie, you're not going? No. So yeah, we need to leave here by 11 sharp. The recent snowstorm, emergency management is collecting data and financial figures to see if there's a possible way to get some reimbursement for any money from the state, but I think they're going to fall far short. So as bad as it was, it just wasn't an expensive enough storm to trigger any emergency funds, so. It's bad. And I'd like to apologize to all these people for the plow job, it's all we can do just to get the streets open. And the guys will probably still be hauling snow from downtown next week, so. That was a bad one, so that's all I got.
Any questions for Carl? And then Brian's not here, library director's not, then it's Bob.
I'm not here.
Okay. Building permit report is in your packet. Any comments or questions on that?
It still needs the dates corrected on it.
These dates have been what the village board asked for, agreed to the last time around, and been in effect for about a year.
To just use the end date?
Yes.
I must have missed that meeting. Because we used to compare it by month.
Next, we have presentation of accounts and other claims against the village.
The voucher list consists of deposit of payroll deductions, payment of loans, vouchers number 24688 through 24696, 24698 through 24728, in a total amount of $42,892.04. Voucher number 24697 turns out to be a duplicate of a voucher that was on the last list. Direct deposit payroll in the amount of $31,690.01. Voucher, utility vouchers number 10291 through 10299 in the amount of $1,847.26.
Any questions, comments, or we need a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Roll.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Comments and miscellaneous business?
Communications. Communications and miscellaneous business.
Communications, and, yep, that's well, okay. Then we'll go to, hearing none there, I'll put comments and suggestions from citizens present. Yes.
I have a couple here. So I just want to thank everybody for listening to us. I understand you're not in an enviable position. I have a couple of comments and a question, one directed to McMahon here. I looked at the original assessment documents, the original engineering documents, and to put in the water for the entire Michael Richter project was only $21,000, $22,000. That was to do the entire, then the sewer was 52,000, but the entire estimate for the water was only in the $20,000 range. So I just wanted to point that out because they had asked, so I'm not really clear on how the other numbers come up, but that, I just wanted to make a point of that as I looked at it today. I would make a couple of requests to the board to help us understand. I mean, because you have a lot of resources out here and people who are invested in what the decision is going to be. Okay, I know more about TIDS than I ever wanted to know in my entire life, and these meetings are just loads of fun, so I like coming to them every 2 weeks. But in the same breath, if you need more time than 2 weeks to come up or flush out ideas, a lot of what Peter said, and by the way, thank you very much, Carl and Peter, for sitting down and trying to hash out another idea. I don't know that I fully understand it because there were some terms in here that that I'm not abreast of, and I don't understand what that means. So I would ask that any information that you can provide out to the general public to help us understand. I know you're not looking to give us and say, okay, here's the project, but just to understand the terms that are coming out for us to to be able to make a suggestion. Because the more informed that we are, the more that we can help you do your jobs to come up with a reasonable solution that everybody's gonna like, or everybody can live with anyway, not necessarily like. But I think that dialogue is important. As far as the idea, like your feedback you asked for, Julie, I think more ideas, more options, which we'll say because we had 3 options, the more options the better. Because the more options that you have to look through, the greater the likelihood you're gonna find an option that is gonna be amenable to everyone. Okay? And I think, that's all my notes here. Yeah, I would just ask you try to, keep us in the loop as much as possible so we can help. Maybe somebody, Peter came up with an idea, nobody even heard, Peter Carl came up with an idea, nobody even had a clue could even be done. So any information you can give to us, maybe somebody else will come up with another idea. And it'll, a big light bulb will go off and everybody will say, well, it's great, let's do that. So that's all I got to say. But thank you all for listening and taking our concerns to heart.
Any other comments from citizens? Yes?
These are long, holy smokes. I do want to say thank you. It's been a long month for all of us. You guys actually came back to human today, in my eyes. I'm struggling with one part. You're bringing up a wheel tax, and I guess I'm curious, do you know what the wheel tax is in Millennium? Any idea? You said 5, 10, 15, 20. Do you have?
20.
What is it? 20? Okay, I was just curious.
And actually, for anybody who wants, I've got some extras of the sheets.
Okay, so I respect the process, and I'm actually very tired of the process. I'm more disappointed in the process than anything, but I respect the process. So you're coming up with this wheel tax? Great, good idea. Where was it in any of this discussion? You're saying about easing on some of these assessments and bringing some of those down and lessening the hurt, but you guys are ready to go ahead and just ramrod this right into Parker Heights. But we could have pushed this project out a little bit and looked at a wheel tax and helped out our projects and our roadways. This wheel tax, wouldn't this Michael Richter project or anything associated with it, wouldn't that fit into a wheel tax? That would be construction.
Just so you know, I proposed this before Diane even started here and got shot down by that board.
The wheel tax or the?
The wheel tax.
Okay, so, but you guys knew about it. You knew all the wheel taxes.
Yeah, I knew of it, but like I said, the board at that time, it was like 3 years ago.
Didn't want to do it?
They didn't, the board then shot it down, they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to put that extra $20 onto all of their residents, so assessments could come down. But we end up, if we get an assessment, you're not the only ones that I've ever seen here for an assessment. Anytime I've sat on this board and had an assessment, this is what I've seen. Nobody wants to be assessed.
Right.
I mean, but you have to pay for it somehow.
It would be more.
That was why I brought up the wheel tax.
But again, thank you for your ideas. Like, you don't understand, this has been weeks of just getting hammered, getting punched in the face. Thank you for the ideas. I'm excited to learn about a wheel tax, as strangely enough as I want to get taxed again and again and again, but I would like to learn about that. So, thank you.
Yes.
I just, want to echo it. Thank you very much. You guys were, in Ernie's terms, back to human, you guys were very respectful to us. It's like we came to a whole different meeting tonight. It's very much appreciated that you guys are actually listening to us and considering things, and that's what you're elected to do, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes.
I just want to bring up the fact that I'm not up on TIDS like Jim is here. To me, it all boils down to that all this is being done because of the development. Is the development actually putting any money into the public infrastructure? That's kind of what the TID is for
put infrastructure into those areas?
But are they,
We can't,
you said,
But that's kind of what they're for.
so are the funds coming from the village to put that in? Or are they actually,
From that group.
so actually that money goes into it? Okay. My next comment was also on the wheel tax. I agree it's something you can look at, but it's not something I'd be in favor of. Once you get a tax, it never seems to go away. So, I'd look pretty hard, because you might get a few more meetings like this if you try to pass that. Thank you.
Anyone else have comments? Hearing none, we're open for a motion to adjourn.
Do we have one more? No? No, okay.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye. We are adjourned.
I didn't get brought up very often.